Hi, Sharon.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We'll let folks trickle in here. Hi, Jessica.
Oops, there we go. I said hello. How's it going?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. We're just letting folks trickle in here. Sharon's here as well. We could probably just get started. So I guess by quick introduction, I work in recruiting and I've been doing this now for 2012, 2013, and I was part of the NSA. Gosh, I have to look at the dates. I moderated two JSCs, and they have all since moved on. And prior to my recruiting career, I was in software product management, product development, and then prior to that, I was in like more aerospace, mechanical engineering. So I've had a bit of an eclectic career path. I do this once a week and just, try to give back by giving sort of my perspective as a recruiter um, to help folks sort of navigate their job search more effectively. So this is sort of just kind of an ask me anything kind of thing. I don't really have much of a structure or program. So I leave it to you guys to bring any questions, scenarios that may benefit from, a recruiter's perspective.
Yeah, that's amazing. First of all, thank you for doing this. I've had a tab open on my computer for probably 2 months now, with the intention of signing up to join one of these. So I'm happy to connect.
Now you can
Um,
close that tab.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's now moved into my Notion tracker. So it's like where my tabs go to be referenced later.
Yeah,
Um, Sharon, do you want me to? I guess I can give just a kind of a quick intro for myself, my background, if that's helpful.
sure.
Jessica Kerner, I live in the Bay Area in San Francisco, just north of San Francisco here. And I've been in B2B marketing in the renewable energy sector for my whole career, which is pushing 17 years now. So I've held a number of different sort of hats in that span, from demand generation, product marketing has been a big focus of my career journey, all in kind of the climate tech space. And I've been at a leadership level, so director, VP for the last, I would say, 10 years or so, or in a head of function, public companies, private companies, and the last three have been startups, Series B and Series C. So I left my last company in June and am kind of I'm in also in my second JSC, and I'm such a huge fan of that organization and the network and
Yeah.
everything. So I think one of the things I'd love your insight on is I'm kind of pursuing a dual track. So I've started an LLC for consulting, because I've seen a need, especially in the startup space, for more project-based work. Earlier stage companies are having a hard time getting funding. They're super sensitive about
Yeah.
headcount. Looking at where I can add value and really make a difference and bringing that leadership expertise to those organizations. is kind of where I'm honing in. But I'm also still pursuing a full-time in-house role. And
Yeah.
I'm getting traction, although I don't have contracts, like I don't have revenue coming in. I'm having conversations with a lot of folks on the consulting sort of fractional CMO direction. And then I'm getting almost no traction at all on my job search, job application, like for in-house
Yeah.
roles. So I don't know if you'd suggest like, I don't know, focusing on one path or the other, or if the dual path is, is something that's still kind of
Yeah.
worth
I don't,
pursuing.
yeah. So I think I talked about this maybe a few weeks ago. I don't think the dual track, as you call it, is mutually exclusive,
Yeah.
right? The motion for generating sort of leads for a W-2 full-time employment opportunity is largely the same motion for generating leads for fractional or consultative based 1099 work,
Hmm.
right? And so I think things are changing now, especially sounds like you work in startups. So the past 10 years, I've been, well, since 2012, 13, most of our work has been with early stage startups, Series A, Series B.
Yeah.
And so from what I've been seeing lately, the past year or so, like a lot of the VC funding has been well, it's slowed down a lot, but it's also been more concentrated in, sort of AI enabled, AI based kinds of companies. And so there's a bit of a more concentration there. So all that said, like I think what you're saying about a lot of companies, particularly startups, are a little bit more sensitive to making their dollar go further. And what that means is what that's translating to is, they're slower in terms of, hiring the W-2s, hiring even executive leadership. And because things move so fast, so it's sort of a tailwind for fractional kinds of work. And I think I think that's going to be, it feels like it's going to be increasingly so. So, what I've recommended to folks is like, I don't think the dual track is mutually exclusive. Again, the same motion, I think applies to both. And, so yeah, maybe from a recruiter's perspective, well, so the other thing too is like I've seen folks sort of the path where they're seeking fractional work. Eventually, they have sort of a portfolio, a small portfolio of fractional work, and maybe that's concurrent work, right? So maybe they're fractional, they're consulting for one, two, three concurrent clients. But what I've seen is that a lot of times it's almost like a try before you buy, right? And depending on the stage of the company, they get to a point where it's like, oh shoot, Jessica's awesome. She's done some great work, and we're at a point now where we're ready to bring her on board full time. Let's consider making an offer. So like I've seen that kind of work out that way too. And then at that point, you have a decision to make, right? In terms of going back W-2 or staying 1099 or whatever, corp, however you're structured. Um, as far as, from a recruiter's perspective, um, I think there's a lot of sort of understanding and tolerance for, breaks in a person's resume right now. Being unemployed for 3, 6, whatever, 9 months is not uncommon. Um, and so ideally, if you find you're not getting much traction on the W-2 side or the full-time side, you're doing some sort of project-based or consultative based work that you can use to talk about, during that 3, 9, whatever the case may be, right? And so the other thing too is, I guess one thing to consider is maybe how might this look um, to a recruiter, right? Like recruiters like candidates that are kind of on this predictable trajectory, right? And they want to reduce their risk, right? That's one of the things with recruiters. They're risk averse, right? And that shows up in different ways, right? Like they're looking for folks that check the boxes in terms of the job description and that fit into the culture. But a lot of times, especially with startups, they're looking for cultural ads, not just cultural fits, right? And so when you're looking for a cultural ad, that's somebody that's, somewhat different from the what the existing culture looks like.
Mhm.
And so it's sort of this tension of finding like somebody that looks the same as the rest of the team, but somebody that looks different,
Right.
right? And so there's a tension there. But just going back, like recruiters they like to mitigate risk a lot of times. And so if your trajectory looks like this, like you want to be a software developer, now you want to be a product manager, now you want to be a designer, now you want to go into sales, that's risk, right? And so I mean that's like kind of extreme, right? But if they see that you're going fractional, but you're also looking for a full-time position, the question will come up, right?
Mhm.
Like kind of what is your level of commitment and is this something, do you want to sort of start a fractional practice in the short term? What does that mean for your longevity with our company? So it prompts all these questions.
Right.
So you have to be prepared to I guess address those. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I agree that if it does feel like there could be overlap. I think part of my anxiety has just been that I would pursue consulting for early stage startups. I don't know that I would pursue, a Series A, Series B full-time role right out of the gate.
Mm,
Just, with the volatility and with the instability that is, inherent with startup. I mean, the reality that most fail,
yeah.
so I guess that's the only area where I think the pool of organizations and roles that I'm going for in my full-time hire application process is, my candidate market fit. It's like, it's a very different picture than what my ideal customer profile would be for consulting.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's where I'm running into some trouble too, but don't want to monopolize the time.
Yeah. I think fractional is a good path, because you're leveraging, as a job seeker, if you're a lot of job seekers are looking for their next W-2 position. And, a lot of times people haven't looked for a job in a while, especially in this kind of environment. And so they're spinning up all these motions, networking, LinkedIn profile, resume writing, right? And then once they get their position, then all that just kind of goes to the wayside. But what I encourage folks is to continue that motion. And if you're doing that in the context of landing, 10-hour, 15-hour, whatever fractional work or part-time consulting projects, your efforts in building that motion, they just yield more benefits over time, right? So anyway,
Thanks. That's
hi Anna.
helpful.
Hi, Eric. Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. We have a small group today, which I don't mind. I love it, because when we get a larger group, people get kind of shy and they don't want to talk. But I think I messed up on oh gosh, the Slack thing that I posted. I mentioned 3 p.m. And anyway, so I got my wires crossed.
So we're lucky we have more of you.
Yeah. And I find it to be more engaging when there's like less than 5 people. It's just, yeah.
Mhm.
Is there, what,
Um,
are you posting in the WS, or I'm sorry, in the Job Search Council
Yeah, I think I
Slack?
posted in the random channel.
Okay, got it.
I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I forget and I don't have it automated or anything like that. But, you know, I think when I post it in there, like in advance, I get a bit of a surge of folks. I've got a mailing list now of like 500 people. I've been doing this for over a year. Yeah. And so I don't push it much. I mean, if people want to show up and show up, if not, it's fine.
I actually found out about you because I was in the 50 plus group
Okay.
yesterday, and I was asking about the recruiter, group at in Job Search Council, and I heard, oh, there was a huge waiting list, and then one of the people
Oh,
there
really?
recommended you. So, uh,
So I'm not affiliated per se, like I'm not sanctioned or endorsed by the NSA. I know that they were doing something with again, I was a moderator, but I wasn't like yeah, and I know they were doing something which sounds like what you were alluding to, Sharon. This other is it in a separate channel? Is it a separate group? What is the nature of that?
I Okay, so it probably happened because you said you've been doing this for like a year, so it might have been like right as you got out of JC that they
Mm.
started this recruiter network. And so
Oh,
it was part of like the conversations, the exit interviews or whatever, that whole
Yeah.
part where you have with people, that they offered they started to create this group of recruiters that people could go to and ask questions.
Okay.
So yeah. So I haven't
Okay, got it.
looked into it too much since they started it, but the reason I was asking and the reason I came here was because I I'm in tech support. I was at an email service provider in Seattle for 20 years, actually. And some people think that's good, and other people think I'm lazy and complacent or whatever. But it was just a really good group of people, and I believed in the product, and so that's why I stayed. And so then eventually we were, after a bunch of acquisitions, we were acquired by a company who really just wanted us for our customers to try to sell them on their email platform. And they had outsourced support in India. So we got to train those people and then say goodbye. So that was fun. But when I left that company, I was director of technical support. Now, I'm the leader who kind of gets put in that position, and I do feel like I was a good leader, but it's not the thing that I really aspire to continue to do. I would really like to dig more into like the tough issues and like figure out problems and how to solve them. During my time off, I went back to school and I got a Python programming certificate because I was looking at like tech support engineer positions and they were asking for programming, which I did not have. I had like HTML, CSS, kind of can troubleshoot that sort of stuff, but not real
Yeah.
programming. So that's why I focused on that. But what really drew me to like you and being able to speak to a recruiter is I had an interview recently that was a referral from someone I used to work with. And when I talked to the recruiter, he asked me why I wanted this position, and it was a technical account manager position. And I said
Yeah.
that I really like digging into issues and like helping customers, remove blocks and whatever. And he said, if you didn't have a referral, I never would have chosen your resume for this position because you are a leader. And so, like, you didn't convince me or you couldn't, basically like what you said about recruiters being risk averse,
Yeah.
like, am I just getting this, trying for this job just until I can find a director or hire
Yeah.
whatever position? So I'm wondering what you think about that.
I mean that would be a question I'd probably ask if he or she saw a trajectory in your career path where you've been more leadership oriented or management oriented, and now you're going to a like an IC individual contributor role kind
Mhm,
of position.
mhm,
It would be a question that would come up, right? Is, why do you want to go into an IC when your trajectory's been like this or whatever this? Now you want to do this or this? Why the change, right? So as a recruiter, one of the most interesting things that you can explore about a person from a professional perspective is when they make a job change, a job or a career change, right? Because that's where interesting things happen. And you can ask the questions of like why did you leave your last company? Why did you switch careers from this to that? And it gives you really insights into sort of the person's value and the values and their thought process. So when you're trying to apply to a different kind of role or position or what have you, that question will probably come up from an astute recruiter, right? Because they want to understand like why, and it gives them insight again into your values, into your thought process, into your maybe shifting shifting values in terms of your career or your ambitions or whatnot, right? It gives them insight into that. And because obviously they don't want a flight risk, right? They don't want somebody leaving in 6 months or even 12 months, right? Ideally, you know, if the company's worth their salt, they'd want to keep you longer, right? And have you grow within the company. So that would be a question. Yeah.
yeah. So since I worked at the same company for 20 years, my resume isn't very attractive to just have a 20-year thing with director of technical support, right? So I did the like, I split it up by the companies that we were acquired by, and I showed career
Yeah.
progression that way.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, I can answer that question when I'm in an interview, but I'm wondering how I should convey it in my resume or a cover letter or whatever I have to offer, to just get in even to the point where I can answer that question.
Yeah. That's a good question. Um, so on your resume, and I tell folks this a lot, if you look through your resume, you can even have ChatGPT look through your resume and just prompt it to ask, like, what initial questions might a recruiter have about the resume? Like, what are some of the gaps that are not being answered? So I'll give you a typical example, right? One of the things I scan for when I look at a resume is tenure. And if I see somebody's been jumping around a little bit, 3 months here, 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, I start asking questions, right? And so, um, if because I don't want to jump to the conclusion that they're a job hopper, right? Maybe those were contract positions. Maybe there was a riff. Maybe they're working for early stage startups that are, that their existence is questionable, right? So if you can answer or just allude to that in your resume, you could just put something like contract, left because of riff or whatever, right? Like it answers all, it prevents the recruiter from jumping. You don't have to explain everything, but it prevents the recruiter from jumping to conclusions, right? Because if that's in the absence of any additional information, they'll probably be like, they're probably a job hopper. I'm going to look at the next resume, right? Or next application. But if you can you can mitigate that by just a few words, contractor, 1099, left because of a riff, right? Or acquired or something, whatever, right? Like it doesn't have to be a long explanation. In fact, if it's shorter, it's better, right? But if you could just anticipate some of the questions that might come up as a function of what a recruiter might be looking for in your resume, and that would be one of the things, right? Is like if you're, manager, director, VP, director, now you're going back to an individual contributor role. It's like, whoa, you were going this way, now you're going that way. Not necessarily down, but you're just going a different way, right? It raises a question. And so if you can answer that question in a short, brief way, um, that will prevent the recruiter from jumping to conclusions, that would be helpful. And in your case, I'd have to think about that a little bit more and how that, you might already be thinking about this more, but I guess the point is like put something in the resume that will kind of explain maybe because if your trajectory looks like this, but then all of a sudden it's like this, that's where the question comes up, and you don't want them to jumping to conclusions or the wrong conclusions anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a good idea to go into chat and say, this is why, how should I change my resume or how would you view it? Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Eric, I have a LinkedIn skills question. Um, so, at least on LinkedIn Premium, I know we can list out up to 100 skills that we have, and then I know that we can link them to jobs. Um, so, I guess one question is, do recruiters look through those 100 skills? And also, kind of related, um, is there a best practice to how many skills we should link per job? Like, is it bad to say that we use like these 20 skills on this job? Or like, should we limit it to like top five, or does nobody care?
Here's what I'm gonna do for you, Anna. I only have a few minutes, but what I'll do is I'll pull up your profile in LinkedIn Recruiter
Hmm.
and I'll just export it to a PDF, um, and I can send it to you. Um, I might have to do it after this call at some point. But to answer your question, I don't really tool around in this tool section in the skill section.
Okay.
I think there may be some benefit in terms of the whatever, the search engine optimization, right? Because when a recruiter is querying for to build a list of prospective candidates they could start looking at, they'll type in keywords, they'll type in a description, they'll configure certain search parameters, and then they'll get a list. So if I don't know exactly how it works, but assuming that between you and another person, you have a bunch of skills listed out in that section versus another person that has little to none, I think the search query will prioritize yours more than the person that has none, if
Okay.
that makes sense. I
Yeah.
haven't validated this per se, but I would assume that the search algorithm would prioritize somebody with skills that are relevant to the query versus somebody
Hmm.
that doesn't have any skills in that particular section.
Got
I
it.
mean, that would just make logical sense, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just wondering if there's like some extra math that like if you have now linked 50 skills to a particular job, now thinks that you are, I don't know, like a big liar or something. You couldn't possibly use 50 skills in this job, which I mean you could, but um
Yeah. uh, there may be some sort of diminishing marginal return threshold there that
okay.
I couldn't give you a number,
Yeah.
but uh, I'll have hold on one second. Let me just send a quick note. Okay, I had my assistant. She'll pull down that PDF of your LinkedIn recruiter profile.
Thank you.
Um, and we'll see if it's different or how it might be different from your uh, I guess your non-LinkedIn recruiter profile. Um, just so you can kind of see the difference. But yeah, maybe that's helpful. We'll see.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Just a quick question for you guys. Have you guys seen any uptick in terms of activity lately, either callbacks or just interviews? You have, Anna? Like what is it over the past few months, past few weeks?
Last couple of weeks, but I've also been updating my LinkedIn. So I don't know if it's,
Okay.
what's prompting it.
Okay. Cool.
I had an interview recently, like I told you, and then I had a friend who today just told me she got a job, and both of those were based on referrals. So
Nice.
I'm
Yeah.
really like, okay, I really have to dig into the networking because just randomly submitting resumes isn't doing it for me. So,
Yeah, it helps quite a bit if you have some sort of referral or internal champion that's just nudging, right? Because the recruiters are dealing with stacks of resumes and stacks of applications and, more requisitions than they've been asked to handle in years past, so
have you
all
read the
right. Well,
2 Hour Job Search? Do you recommend that book?
no, I haven't read that.
Oh, okay.
Have you read it, I assume?
I started reading it. I'm most of the way through. I kind of like methodical, tell me the steps to do this thing kind of, and it seems pretty good. It's heavy on the like, finding champions within companies and so
Yeah.
yeah.
2 hour job search. All right.
This is probably a topic for next week, considering we're under a minute left, but curious, and maybe I'll join next week to ask, but what your thoughts are on AI in both on the hiring side, recruiting side, and also candidate side.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, please join next week. I'd love to
Yeah,
explore this topic with everyone much
yeah,
more deeply because we're actively using AI on our
yeah,
side for recruiting.
yeah.
And I'll share with you how we're doing it. It saves me a lot of time so that I can focus more on this, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and and not to say that what we're doing is entirely unique. I think a lot of other companies will, if they haven't already, will start doing this. We're doing it in a very sort of bespoke way, because I'm maybe a little bit more adept than most recruiters at sort of jury rigging prompts and GPTs and knowledge bases and things like that. But eventually these things will be much more accessible as ATS systems start to make it more mainstream and integrated into their existing platforms. And so, yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that next week, and maybe I'll promote a little bit more and say, hey, this is what we're going to talk about, and because I'd love to hear what you guys are doing, and I'll share with you guys what I'm doing, and I think it could be a good conversation.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. All right, guys, appreciate you. I have an interview right now, so I will talk to
Ooh,
you
good
maybe
luck.
next week. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
All right.
I'm interviewing a candidate.
All right, take care, Eric.
All right,
Bye.
thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.